Okay, so today we're diving into something that I think a lot of people might not realize is actually kind of tricky.
Yeah.
It's going to the doctor for the first time in
Hmm.
an English-speaking country.
Right?
Um, and you might be thinking, well, I'm pretty good at English,
Ah,
I can get by.
yeah.
But it's more than just the language. Like,
Yeah.
there are certain things about going to the doctor that it's like a whole new ball game.
The like
It's a whole new set of rules, a whole new set of expectations, and it can feel
the whole system.
very, very overwhelming.
Absolutely. And especially when you're not feeling well anyway,
Right.
adding that stress of the unknown on top of it
Yeah.
can actually make you feel worse.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to make it easy for you.
Yeah,
We want to kind of give you the shortcut.
exactly. We've been looking at some information that breaks down every step of the process.
Right.
So from that initial phone call to make the appointment,
Yeah.
all the way through to, what to do when you leave the doctor's office.
To paying.
Yeah, payment
Yeah.
to understanding all the instructions, the advice that you get.
So we're giving you all the tools to feel totally in the know.
Exactly.
So you're not like, oh my gosh, what's happening?
Yeah.
So we'll start with making the appointment,
Right.
that first step.
Even booking that appointment, that very first hurdle,
Mm-hmm.
can feel really intimidating for a lot of people.
Yeah, I imagine so.
There's that worry about saying the wrong thing or not
Yeah.
being understood.
Right.
But luckily, the information we found gives a really simple and clear phrase you can use.
Okay.
Just say, "Hello, I'd like to make an appointment with doctor's name, please."
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah. It's direct and polite and immediately gets the point across.
And it's clear.
Exactly.
It's just what you want.
Yeah.
Now, what if you need to see someone soon?
Yeah.
Like if it's kind of an urgent situation.
If it's more urgent,
Mm-hmm.
there are a couple of phrases that we found really useful.
Okay.
So you can start with, when is the earliest available appointment?
Yeah.
And that gets straight to the point.
Mhm.
Then a good follow-up would be to ask, is there a cancellation I could take?
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. Sometimes offices have last-minute changes, and they don't always automatically offer up those slots.
Oh, I see.
So it's good to be proactive.
Yeah, because they might have someone who canceled that morning,
Exactly.
and then you could take that.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay, so what about if it's not urgent?
Yeah.
Like it's just a general checkup, or you have some flexibility in your schedule.
That a good phrase to use is, do you have any availability this week?
Okay.
That keeps your options open.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't have anything this week you can follow up with, if not, can you recommend any other times in the next few days?
Okay, yeah.
So you're being flexible, but you're not completely open-ended.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So how do you say that you want to just have a regular checkup?
Oh, yeah. A good phrase for that is, can I schedule an appointment for a checkup?
Okay.
That's clear and simple, and it lets them know what you need.
Yeah, and just to clarify for people listening, a checkup is like
Yeah, it's a general health examination.
just to make sure everything's okay.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's really important to say why you need to see the doctor, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Like just saying, I want to see the doctor
Yeah.
doesn't really give them much to go on, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Being clear about why you're coming in helps them understand how urgent your situation is
Mm-hmm.
and also how much time they need to schedule for you.
Right, like if it's just a checkup, it'll be a shorter appointment.
Exactly.
But if you're having a really complicated issue, it might take longer.
Yeah, exactly. And we found some good examples of how to state the reason for your visit.
Okay.
You could say, I need an appointment for a sore throat,
Mm-hmm.
or I need an appointment for a flu shot,
Okay.
or I need an appointment for stomach pain,
Right.
that kind of thing.
So it's, I need an appointment for your issue.
Yeah.
And then you state your issue.
Okay.
Clear. Okay. Now, what about if there's a language barrier?
Oh, yeah, that's something that a lot of people worry about.
Yeah.
And it's really important to address it right from the start.
Okay.
You can simply ask, can I see someone who speaks your language?
Okay.
So you could say, can I see someone who speaks Spanish?
Mm-hmm.
Or can I see someone who speaks French?
Right. So don't be afraid to ask for help.
No, not at all. A lot of healthcare providers have access to interpreters or bilingual staff.
Right, right. That's reassuring.
Yeah.
Um, are there any documents that you should ask about when you're making the appointment?
Yeah. It's always a good idea to check about that.
Okay.
You can just ask, are there any specific documents or paperwork I need to bring?
Okay.
And that could include things like your insurance card if you have one,
Okay.
or any forms that they need you to fill out,
Mm-hmm.
or if another doctor has referred, you might need to bring a referral letter.
Right, a referral.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's always good to ask in advance so you're prepared.
Yeah, I was also going to say, a lot of times these days they have forms that you can download from their website.
Online, yeah.
Yeah, so you could ask,
Yeah.
do you have any forms I can fill out in advance?
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Then you can take your time with it. And
Yeah, you're not rushing in the waiting room.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Another question is, how long is the appointment likely to take?
Yeah,
That's something that's helpful to know
absolutely.
because, if you have to work or if you have,
I need to plan your day.
yeah.
So you could ask, how long is the appointment roughly expected to be?
Okay.
And that'll give you a better idea of how to plan things.
Yeah, okay. And sometimes in a busy practice, you might not actually see the main doctor.
That's true.
So is it okay to clarify who you'll be meeting with?
Absolutely. You can just ask, will I be seeing the doctor or a nurse practitioner?
Okay.
Because as we said before, different healthcare professionals handle different types of appointments.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to know who you'll be seeing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Last question on making the appointment.
Yeah.
What about cancellations or rescheduling?
Oh, that's important to understand as well.
Yeah.
So you could ask, what happens if I need to cancel or reschedule the appointment?
Okay.
And then you can follow up with more specific questions like, what is your cancellation policy?
Okay.
Or how much notice do I need to give if I need to reschedule?
Right. So you don't get charged.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a really important question.
Yeah, and I think one of the most useful tips we found is to just remember to be polite and clear when you're speaking on the phone.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not face to face. It's important to enunciate clearly.
Enunciate.
Yeah, and also have your calendar handy so you can
Oh, yeah.
schedule the appointment easily.
Right.
And it's always a good idea to check the office hours as well.
Yeah.
Some places might have online booking options too, which can be really convenient.
Well, that's so helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've made the appointment.
You've done it.
You got past that first hurdle.
Now comes the day of the appointment, and you have to go to the doctor's office, which can sometimes be a little bit nerve-wracking.
Yeah. I think even once you've booked the appointment, walking into a new environment,
Yeah.
especially when you're not feeling your best,
Mm-hmm.
can still be a bit daunting.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what are the first things you should say when you arrive at the reception desk?
So there are a couple of key phrases that we found were really helpful.
Okay.
You could keep it simple and say, I have an appointment at time.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I have an appointment at 2:30 p.m.
Okay, clear and simple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another option is to give a bit more information up front and say, my name is your name, and I'm here for my time appointment.
Okay.
So that would be like, my name is Maria Gonzalez, and I'm here for my 11:00 a.m. appointment.
Right, so your full name and the time.
Exactly. That just helps them verify your details really quickly and efficiently.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, insurance is a big part of healthcare in a lot of English-speaking countries.
Yeah.
So what should you ask about that when you arrive?
It's good to get that sorted out early on.
Okay.
So you could ask, do you need my insurance card?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I need to provide my health insurance information now?
Okay.
And if you're not using insurance or you're paying directly,
Yeah.
it's a good time to ask about the cost of the visit as well.
Right.
It's often better to have that conversation up front.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember too that in some systems, like in the US,
Yeah.
you have to have your insurance details right from the start.
Obvious.
Otherwise, they won't even see you.
Right.
Yeah, so that's really important.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've checked in, and now you need to wait.
Right. The waiting room.
The waiting room.
Yeah.
Um, is it okay to ask where you should sit?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
It's both polite and practical.
Yeah.
You could ask, where can I sit while I wait?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there a specific waiting area I should use?
Okay.
Just so you're in the right spot and you can settle in comfortably.
Right. Right. And then comes the big question, the age-old question.
Yeah.
How long will I have to wait?
How long is the wait?
Yeah. Is that an acceptable question to ask?
Oh, absolutely. It's perfectly reasonable.
Okay.
You could say, how long am I likely to have to wait?
Mhm.
Or is the doctor running on schedule? Or is there a delay?
Right.
Knowing this just helps you manage your expectations
Yeah.
and maybe plan how to use your time while you wait.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And what's the most polite way to ask where the restroom is?
Oh, you could just say, excuse me, could you please tell me where the restroom is?
Okay.
Or is there a bathroom I can use while I'm waiting?
Right. Simple.
Simple and polite.
Okay. And while you're waiting, you might want to ask about those forms we talked about.
Yeah, definitely.
Like if there are forms they need you to fill out.
You can ask, are there any forms I can fill out while I wait?
Oh.
And that shows that you're being proactive,
Mm-hmm.
and it could potentially speed things up once you see the doctor.
Right. Right. Okay. And I think it's important to remember here, to stay calm and polite,
Yeah,
even if there's a long wait.
absolutely.
And if it's a really long wait, it's okay to politely ask for an update,
Yes.
just so you know what's going on.
You have the right to know.
Yeah.
And there were some other good tips for when you arrive,
Okay.
like making sure you have something to read or your phone is charged
Yeah, that's a good one.
in case of a long wait.
Especially these days.
Yeah.
You need your phone.
Yeah, and make sure you have your identification and insurance details ready.
Right.
Be aware of any office rules, like maybe noise levels or phone use,
Mm-hmm.
and just try to stay relaxed.
Yeah, just chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Breathe.
And observe the layout of the office so you kind of know where the things are.
Yeah, just get your bearings.
Yeah. Okay, so you've checked in, you've waited, and now you're in the examination room with the doctor.
Okay.
Now it's time to talk about why you're there
Right.
and communicate your symptoms.
This is where clear and effective communication is so important,
Yeah.
because the better you can describe how you're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
the better the doctor can understand what might be going on,
Right.
and then give you the most appropriate care.
Yeah, and it's important to be honest.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't hold back anything.
Yeah, tell them everything, even if it seems embarrassing or unimportant.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be relevant.
Yeah. Okay, so our sources gave us some really good phrases to start with
Yeah.
for describing how you've been feeling generally.
You can start by saying, I've been feeling symptoms.
Okay.
And then you can give specific examples like, I've been feeling very tired,
Okay.
or I've been feeling nauseous, or weak and dizzy, even anxious and stressed.
Right.
Those are all valid things to share with your doctor.
Okay.
And as we saw before, adding details about how long you've been feeling this way or when it happens
Yeah.
can give them even more information.
Right. So, for example, you could say, I've been feeling very tired for the last few days.
Exactly.
Or I feel nauseous, especially after eating.
Yeah, those are great examples.
Okay, what about if you have more specific symptoms?
Yeah.
Like a headache or a fever?
Then you can be more direct and say, I have a headache, fever, cough.
Okay.
And then give more details like, I have a sharp headache that started yesterday.
Okay.
Or I have a dry cough that's worse at night.
Mm-hmm.
Or I have a fever of around 102 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
The more specific you can be, the better.
Yeah, because a headache can be so many different things.
Exactly. Headaches are tricky.
Yeah, so the more detail you give them, the better they can figure out what's going on.
Exactly.
Okay. And the duration of the symptom is also really important, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So how do you describe that?
You can say, I've had this pain for time period,
Okay.
and then give examples like 2 days,
Okay.
a week, or a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
You could even say it's been on and off for a month,
Oh, right. Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes it's not just what you're feeling, but what makes it better or worse.
Right.
So how do you describe that?
A really useful phrase is, it hurts when I action.
Okay.
So you could say, it hurts when I breathe deeply,
Hmm.
or it hurts when I move my neck to the left,
Right.
or it hurts when I swallow, or it hurts when I walk or stand for too long.
Okay, so really explaining what triggers it
Exactly.
or what makes it worse. Yeah, that gives them a lot of clues.
Yeah.
Okay, allergies are obviously really important to mention.
Yes.
So how do you talk about those?
Just be direct and say, I'm allergic to medicine food, and then give specific examples like penicillin or peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to mention any reactions you've had as well.
Right.
So you could say, it causes a rash,
Yeah.
or I have difficulty breathing.
Yeah, because some people, have mild allergies and some people have life-threatening allergies.
Exactly. And the doctor needs to know that.
Yeah, okay, so past medical history is also something you need to tell them about.
Yes.
So how do you do that?
You can say, I've had medical condition in the past,
Okay.
and then give examples like asthma since I was a child, or high blood pressure for the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
You should also mention any previous surgeries or hospitalizations.
Right, right.
And as we mentioned before, sometimes family medical history can be relevant as well.
Yeah.
So you could say something like, my mother has a history of heart disease.
Oh, okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, it can give the doctor a more complete picture of your health.
Yeah, okay. What if you're starting to feel a bit better, but you're not 100% yet?
Right.
How do you explain that?
You can use phrases like, I'm feeling better than I was a few days ago, but I'm still not 100%.
Okay.
Or you could say, the pain is starting to ease, but it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Or the swelling has gone down, but I still have some discomfort.
Okay, so you're letting them know that you're on the mend, but you're not fully recovered yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. And I think this is a good time to just remind people listening that, when you're describing your symptoms, try to be as specific as possible.
Yes.
Don't just say, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Say, I feel exhausted even after walking for 5 minutes.
Exactly. Give them a really clear picture.
Yeah. And, describe the intensity. Like, is it mild? Is it moderate? Is it severe? Talk about any changes that you've noticed.
Yes.
Over time. Like, has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse?
Yeah.
And don't leave anything out, even if it seems small or embarrassing.
It could be important.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask for clarification.
Oh, that's so important.
If you don't understand what the doctor is saying,
Yeah.
You can just say politely.
Yeah.
Could you explain that in simpler terms?
Exactly. It's okay to ask.
Yeah.
Doctors use a lot of medical jargon sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's okay to not understand it.
Okay, so now the doctor's examined you, maybe given you a diagnosis.
Yeah.
And now they're going to give you some instructions.
Right.
Which is really, really important to understand. Because if you don't understand the instructions, you could end up not getting better.
Exactly.
Or even worse.
Yeah. So making sure you fully grasp what they're telling you is absolutely vital.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's start with medication instructions.
Okay.
That's very common, isn't it?
Very common.
So what are the key things you need to clarify?
So when the doctor says, you need to take this medication, how often, when?
Okay.
You need to make sure you fully understand the frequency.
Okay.
So is it once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day, and the timing?
Right.
Do you take it with meals? Do you take it in the morning? Do you take it in the evening?
Yeah.
So it's really important to get those details clear.
And to ask if you're not sure.
Absolutely. Don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah.
Should I take this with food or on an empty stomach?
Okay.
Or what should I do if I miss a dose? Those are really important questions.
Yeah, because it can make a big difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah. Okay. Sometimes the advice is a bit simpler, like getting some rest and drinking fluids.
Yeah.
But are there still things you should try to clarify?
Even with simple advice like that, it's always worth asking for a little more detail if you're unsure.
Okay. Yeah.
So if they say rest for a few days and drink plenty of fluids, you could ask, when you say rest, does that mean I should avoid all physical activity, or are light activities okay?
Oh.
Or how much fluid is considered plenty?
Right.
Just so you know you're following the advice correctly.
Yeah, because I think, people have different ideas of what rest means.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's always best to be clear.
Okay. Follow-up appointments are also very common.
Yeah.
So what should you clarify about that before you leave?
If the doctor says make an appointment in a week or two for a follow-up visit,
okay,
make sure to ask if you should schedule that appointment now before you leave. Or if they will contact you to arrange it later.
Okay.
Just so you know what the next steps are.
Right. So there's no confusion.
Exactly.
Okay. Sometimes doctors might give you restrictions on what you can do.
Right.
Like they might tell you not to do certain things.
Yeah.
So what questions are helpful in those situations?
If they say do not action,
okay,
like do not eat spicy foods, or do not engage in strenuous exercise,
okay,
it's helpful to ask for specifics.
Yeah.
So you could say, are there any specific foods I should avoid if I have to eat out? Or are light activities like walking okay? Or should I avoid all exercise?
Yeah, because again, exercise can mean different things.
Exactly.
To different people.
Yeah, some people think of running a marathon.
Yeah.
And some people think of gentle stretching.
Yeah, so it's good to be clear.
Exactly.
Okay. And what about if the doctor recommends tests or procedures?
Yeah.
So if they say something like, you need a test procedure to confirm the diagnosis, what questions should you ask?
Well, you can ask, could you explain what this test is for?
Okay.
Or is it likely to be painful?
Okay.
Or how long will it take to get the results?
Right.
Just understanding the purpose and the process can really help alleviate any anxiety you might have.
Yeah, because sometimes those tests can be a bit scary.
They can be.
Yeah, so it's good to know what to expect.
Yep.
Okay. And prescriptions for medication are also very common.
Yes, very common.
So when you get a prescription, what should you ask?
So when they say, here's a prescription for medicine,
okay,
make sure you know if it's a one-time prescription.
Okay.
Or if you can get refills. And it's really important to ask if there are any known interactions with other medications you might be taking.
Oh, yeah.
Including over-the-counter drugs or supplements.
So tell them everything you're taking.
Everything.
Yeah.
It's always better to be safe than sorry.
And what about those instructions that they give you to take to the pharmacy?
Yeah. So when they say, please take these instructions to the pharmacy, remember that you can ask the pharmacist any questions you might have about the medication as well.
Okay.
Like the best way to store it. Potential side effects. To watch out for whether you should avoid alcohol while taking it.
Right. So you can ask questions at the pharmacy as well?
Absolutely. Pharmacists are a great resource.
Okay. And just generally speaking about understanding instructions.
Yeah.
If you're not clear on something, don't be afraid to ask them to explain it again.
Yeah, just say, could you please explain that again?
Yeah. Or maybe if you're a more visual person,
yeah,
you could ask them to write it down for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's always helpful to make some notes during the consultation.
Yeah, good idea.
So you can refer back to them later.
Yeah, and I always find it helpful to repeat the instructions back to the doctor in my own words.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Just to make sure I've understood correctly.
Right. So you could say, so if I understand correctly, I should.
Exactly.
And then say what you think you should do.
Yep. And of course, if you need translation help, don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah, because you need to understand what they're saying.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the consultation is finished.
Yeah.
And now it's time for payment.
The final hurdle.
Yeah, and to leave the doctor's office.
Yeah.
But this can be another confusing area sometimes.
It can?
Depending on where you are in the world.
Yeah, billing practices can vary a lot.
Yeah.
But knowing what questions to ask can make this final part of the visit much less stressful.
Yeah. So what are some good ways to ask about the cost?
Once the consultation is over, you'll naturally want to know how much you owe.
Right.
So you can ask, how much do I owe for today's visit?
Okay.
Or what is the total cost for the consultation and any tests you ordered?
Mm-hmm.
Or even, could you please provide a breakdown of the charges?
Yeah.
Just understanding what you're being billed for is always a good idea.
Yeah. And what about payment methods?
Yeah, you should ask about that as well before you try to pay.
Okay.
You could say, do you accept payment method?
Okay.
And then give examples like credit cards. Or do you take my insurance?
Right.
Or can I pay using a mobile payment app?
Yeah.
Just clarifying that up front can save you some hassle.
Yeah. Okay. And if you have a prescription, what should you clarify before you leave?
If the doctor has given you a prescription, make sure you know where to get it filled.
Mm-hmm.
So you could ask, where is the nearest pharmacy located?
Okay.
Or is there a specific pharmacy you recommend?
Okay.
Just so you know where to go.
Yeah, and, if they're recommending a specific pharmacy,
Yeah.
maybe they have a good reason for that.
Exactly.
Right.
Maybe they have a relationship with that pharmacy, or they know that they have your medication in stock.
Right. Okay, and of course, it's always nice to end on a polite note.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do we thank the staff?
You can just say something simple like, thank you for your help today.
Okay.
Or, I appreciate your assistance.
Mm-hmm.
Or, thank you for answering all my questions.
Right.
It just shows your appreciation.
Yeah, and it leaves a good impression.
It does.
Yeah. Okay, and we have a few more final tips for you.
Yes, some extra things to keep in mind.
So what are those?
Well, always ask for a receipt or any documentation of your payment.
Okay.
You can say, could I please get a receipt for today's payment?
Mm-hmm.
Or, do you provide an itemized bill that I can take with me?
Okay.
This is important for your records, and if you need to submit it to your insurance,
Right.
if you were using insurance, double check how the claim will be handled.
Okay.